right, we're gonna do some. We gotta have our jokes again. We didn't do enough last time. That was the rumor.
Yeah, I didn't come correct.
All right, Awesemo, here we go. It is the MLB Live Before Lock, the first show I've done before lunchtime in, gosh, months. So this is a good time. I'm joined once again by Anthony Gundacker. We call him Gun. How are you doing? Has it been a nice little run here for you? Because I just have to get this out there now. I crushed it last night. MLB, NHL, and NBA rolled it. Not so good on the sports wagering, but made a few $100, so I'm very happy.
It's been, last night was really good for me as well. It's really good when you have a butt ton of a no-hitter, right? Like, so if you have a bad night on that one, then you might need to reevaluate. But Angel Stacks, Joe Musgrove anchored my night, and it ended up being a really good night. I also had a nice chunk of Franmil Reyes, a little bit of squirrely stuff there. Julio Teheran getting injured in warm-up, so I got a little lucky. Franmil Reyes catching a soft toss and lefty, but it also bit me because I was in love with Eddie Rosario for a bomb, and then that was based on the matchup against Julio. He ended up having to face that lefty, but yeah, super plus night for me last night. I was excited to jump back into it today, but we get kind of a split offering, and we've already lost one of the early game slates due to some weather. So we'll see if we can't continue the momentum here, but I think today might be a little trickier.
All right. Well, we'll jump in here. We're going to do the 4 early games. It was 5, now 4. As Gunn mentioned, we lost the Kansas City Royals and White Sox game. So we are going to have to go yet one more day without all 30 teams in action. That has not happened yet with the various safety days built in for the season openers, some other postponements for weather, and of course the Nationals missing out the first part of their season for COVID. But we're going to jump in here. We'll do that 4 game, and then we're going to focus on the 6 night games. That's the commonality between the main sites. There's some games that FanDuel has, like literally 6 slates today, but they have 2 games at 4, 2 games at 6. We're going to skip those, but we do have that covered for you in the projections and, of course, other content that is available on the site today. So let's jump right in here. Our first one that we've got is the Miami Marlins going against the New York Metropolitans. We have Trevor Rogers taking the mound for Miami, a much improved Metropolitans team here. You guys know him as the Mets. And Jake DeGrom gets a decent matchup here. Wait for it. 2.5 implied run total for the Marlins. You want the over or under on that one?
I was just saying it in a Discord. Like, obviously I don't think they tee off on DeGrom, but in baseball, 2.5. I tend to just put a little something on that because that's bloop and a blast and one off the bullpen territory. But I don't want to pick on DeGrom. But yeah, 2.5 in baseball, I'd probably take the over more times than I wouldn't.
Yeah, definitely a light one here. Run us through here with this one. Going against Trevor Rogers here, he is not too expensive. He's just $6K on FanDuel. Over here on DK, he's a nice 6,900. The Mets do have a 4.1 implied run total here. We've got a little bit of a breeze going out to left field. It's going to be in the mid upper 50s, low to mid 60s throughout the game here. Any interest in Rogers as a secondary pitcher for us today?
I mean, based on some of the limited sample size we've seen him throw in the big leagues, I don't think it's like a crazy take on when you have to play an SB2 on DraftKings. Like, I could see him thriving long enough for 15-ish DKP, and I think that might be enough from an SB2 spot. It definitely doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. I probably don't approach him on FanDuel. I think on FanDuel, I'm just gonna go DeGrom, let the field maybe make some overly creative mistakes. But on DK, I don't think you're out of touch. I will say in the limited sample size that we had on him, he suffered to power against righties, a 300 average allowed and a 2.7 homer per nine. Obviously, just 25 total innings of sample size from last year. So I would imagine that regresses to be a little bit more neutral. But the K stuff looks like it is there, and over 13% swing and strike rate last year. So there's at least hope. It's kind of like the Andrew Heaney game yesterday. Like, the metrics say that he has the swing and strike stuff to get there. So I don't think it's wild, especially this Mets lineup coming out pretty lefty heavy. You got Nimmo, Conforto, Dom Smith, Jeff McNeil, the pitcher spot. Definitely think there is some strikeouts here, but and it's unquantifiable, EMac, but I don't know if you noticed, the Mets bats don't come to Jacob deGrom games. He just gets no run support. So maybe
what is it? Is it something like 2.3? It's like he's pitching against his team is what's happening. I want to say something like in his last 60 starts, it's less than 3 runs, if I remember correctly, of run support while he's been in the game, which is just amazing in and of itself. I mean, we see that's getting to be enough of a track record where, yes, this is completely random because it has nothing to do with him. But every now and then throughout the baseball season, you'll get that one pitcher who just gives up a boatload of runs, and the team is constantly getting crooked numbers behind him. So they're scuffling along with a 5.5 ERA and a above 50% win total. And then you get something like this where you're just like, this is just bizarre, because it's not like the Mets are a bad offense either. I remember back in some of the poor Mariners years when it was Randy Johnson and just a pathetic group of hitters behind him. Okay, that made sense when he didn't get run support. This doesn't, because these guys are actually pretty good. I see someone, Eric Johnson in chat saying, "Hey, I'm going to stack against the." I'm going to take the Marlins here. So sometimes we will talk about a leverage stack, and in baseball, anything can happen. It's an event-based sport. Something happens to DeGrom. He leaves a couple over the plate, and then the bullpen comes in and implodes. That's completely in play today. It's highly unlikely. Today, though, in this particular matchup, this is one where I'm not really interested in specifically doing what we like to call a hedge stack. Now, what we mean by that is, and I have the perfect example, and it involves the Mets. I can't remember if it was Syndergaard or if it was DeGrom, but I did this about 3 years ago. I remember I was on a Sunday morning show with Adam Scherer, and I did a Brewers stack going against them, and they were incredibly low owned. The Mets ace imploded, the bullpen imploded, and I had a great game. I put it in like a $5 single entry contest because I had like 80% of the pitcher. And what I was just trying to do there, you think of it as insurance. It's not going to win me all the monies, but if the pitcher does implode and I have the right guys that get to him, I can make some of my entry fees back. It's hedging. It's not outright going for the brass ring. There are times we want to do that. Today doesn't really feel like one of them. I think this is more of a prove it spot. And if people are going to waste slots with the Marlins, even with 8 teams in action, I'm not overly excited for that. Wrapping up the Mets here, is it? Let me get back to the starting lineups page. Is it Alonso that is going to be your desired target?
Yeah, he's at the highest of my bomb detector model. So if I was, chipping a chair at a bomb there, I'd go for him. It looks like it's like a little below 60 degrees, so it's not like it's incredible weather either. So yeah, Alonso's the guy.
All right, and then one of the deep cuts, I will say, James McCann. Nice history against lefties. So at 3,500 there on DraftKings, not a bad way to knock out that catcher spot. Moving on to our next team here, your team. It is Domingo Germán going into Tampa Bay, taking on the Rays and Chris Archer. Germán missed a chunk of last season for a suspension, but he, of course, is the king of strikeouts. 4.5 implied run total here for the Rays. Coming back at Archer, who has been hit or miss the last couple of years. We have the Yankees with a 5.1 implied run total. What do you want to do here with Chris Archer? Now, here's someone where it's sort of like, I'll match the field, because Yankees do have some strikeouts there. Archer has a long track record of being a good pitcher. He's just, on that downward slope of his career. I'm not doing cartwheels, but I got to play 2 pitchers. We have 8 of them. So by default, I'm going to have a little sprinkling of everybody. I think Archer probably is going to end up being about a 30% guy for me on DK today. What do you want to do with the hurlers in this one?
I mean, that's fair. I think both these pitchers in a plus park like this, like they're viable. Obviously, I think both offenses are going to be very much in play too. I'm more interested in the offense in this game than the pitchers, but when you have to grab an SB2, it definitely is not outside of the realm of possibility for either one of these pitchers to end up. I would probably lean more Archer than Domingo Germán, as hard as that is to say, just because the Yankees so far have shown a higher propensity to really strike out. And this lineup comes out pretty righty heavy. I did look at Germán. I watched his last start. It was awful. I have always felt like Germán, we talked about how pitchers just get more wins than their skill. Germán has been kind of that pitcher that gets more wins than he's actually skilled at. Germán's going to throw a lot of curveballs since the beginning of last year. I think or the year prior, I got a 43%, almost a 43% usage on his curveball, about an 81 mile an hour average velocity, and it's a negative graded pitch. And looking at this Rays lineup, there is only 2 negative grades on a linear scale against that pitch. And I just think it could be a long day for Germán. Last time Germán got beat up, kicked out of the game, and Michael King had to come in and bail him out. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Archer, but I feel like I have a little bit more confidence in Archer than Germán here, and I really think the Rays are in a spot to potentially tee off here. So, yeah, a little bit of them as SB2s, but probably a little bit more Archer, as much as it hurts to say that.
All right. We got a bunch of free content today, so let's talk about that here. We, of course, are sponsored by OddsShopper, one of the Awesemo sister sites here, covering MLB betting in addition to all sports wagering. But today's MLB free content is the rankings. So I have dropped that link into the YouTube chat. You can, of course, get that over at awesemo.com and go to the MLB drop-down menu and select on rankings, and it is free. We also have NBA player projections today, NHL player projections, and then MMA ownership. Now, MMA just started, but they do have a later slate as well, so you can kind of use that as your guide. Or if you want to see how good the projections are for the ownership, go take a gander at those and see what's going on in some of your tournaments. They will be uncannily accurate. That's one of the best things we have here at Awesemo is the various ownership projections across the different sports. All right, let's move on to our next game. I've got too many windows open here. I have a certain system I like to use for a number of browsers I've got open for baseball, and I've only done one baseball show this year, so I'm a little out of practice of what I'm doing, and it's different than how I handle my MLB or my NBA. So sorry about that. We're gonna have a little bit of the training wheels today, but I do want to talk about our next game. I've really found some interesting information here on Yusei Kikuchi for the Seattle Mariners. He is going to be going against the Twins. This one is going to be outside. It's going to be a little cloudy. There's little to no chance of rain, but it's only going to be in the low 50s throughout this game. So not exactly hitting weather here. The interesting thing about Kikuchi is, even though this is his third season here in the majors, he's 30 years old. He started pitching at 19 in the NPB, the Japanese league, the Nippon league. So he's been around their baseball for a long time. When he came up here with the Mariners, lifelong Mariners fan here, so I know a little bit about this, they were looking at limiting his innings and the number of pitches that he was going to do. And they talked about maybe curtailing things or having him shortened outings. He ended up being a reasonably serviceable pitcher, so they didn't really do that. They really didn't let him go more than 6 innings, and they'd skip a start here and there, but he actually ended up not really going with that plan. The interesting thing was his pitch mix. So his first year, he had a fair amount of home runs allowed to lefties and righties. It was about 2 per 9, which no surprise, he's coming over from the Japan League, which is basically like AAA ball. So it's not the show, but they have a little bit different style of play there, different ballparks, and they do a lot of off speed and breaking balls there. So that's something that he kind of brought in with him. He was using his fastball, and I say fastball loosely, it's in the low 90s, that year was about half the time, using a slider 27% of the time, a curve 15% of the time, and a changeup 7.3% of the time. Last year, he abandoned the curveball. went away from it, introduced a new pitch. This is his cut fastball. This was completely intentional. He was kind of building up arm strength, getting ready for the rigors of the full-on season, and then we had the shortened season with the pandemic. But what happened here is he used that 40% of the time and dropped his reliance on his fastball down to 37% of the time. This is important because his K per nine rate went from 6.5 to 9 per nine. That's a big jump. So now all of a sudden he is potentially a strikeout artiste. His home runs dropped dramatically. They went from 2 per 9 to 0.6 per 9. Now, this was only 47 innings for him last year, but this is something that the Mariners talked about, and there's articles out there about it, where he's been intentionally, this was kind of the plan all along. In his first outing this season, he did the same thing and kept that pitch mix. So I want to point out that if we're looking at the longer sample size, this could be a little bit risky. He might not be giving up the home runs that we think. That said, this is the Twins. They're an amazing team against lefties here. I definitely want to go to them, but this is not the, oh yeah, we're going to get 2 or 3 home runs. This is the, I'm not against going with Kikuchi, and we could see 7 or 8 strikeouts. What do you like in this matchup here?
No, I'm with you on Kikuchi, and even dating back to last season, it seems like for whatever reason, Kikuchi's price never gets out of the 6Ks on DraftKings, so he's always just like a viable SP2 anyway, especially on a 4-game slate where I'd almost just take 10 fantasy points. Normally, yeah, Twins against lefties, sign me up. Nelson Cruz, let's go. Byron Buxton, Mitch Garver. So I still think on a 4-game slate, I have to honor that, but we talked about hedging earlier. You can have exposure to the pitcher, grab a couple stacks as well. I think the stack, I don't know, it feels like maybe the stack's more popular than the pitcher, but I'm in full agreement. Kikuchi at 6,500. He's definitely more talented than that price point. And yeah, picking up that cutter and using it more, we've seen that revitalize a lot of elder statesman pitchers. CC Sabathia, another guy that was leaning on high-powered fastballs, and he just didn't have it in this league anymore. So Andy Pettitte kind of coached him into the cutter, and you kind of seen the same results here for Kikuchi. So yeah, give me some Kikuchi, but also give me some Twins. And even if I'm playing some Twins here, it's maybe not even necessarily just for the Kikuchi play here. The Mariners bullpen could come out, and the Twins pedigree can come in. You got to think a little bit crazier on a short 4-gamer, and I maybe it's small enough, especially if I don't want to get to like a Marlins exposure. Maybe it's one of those slates where small enough to where I could have Kikuchi as an SP2 and still have like a Nelson Cruz in the lineup just because he's 6'5". So yeah, I'm in agreement. I don't think Kikuchi's the gas can that his career stats in the major say he is. And at 6,500, there's going to be some Kikuchi exposure for me.
All right, chat, giving us a little feedback. Young Cairo says, hey, are they only going to talk about pitching here? For baseball, that's kind of going to be the crux of a lot of our shows. But what we'll also do is when the pitchers are bad, we'll discuss them and how we want to attack them. And those are going to be where we'll really line up with the hitters. We'll also mention our favorite stacks at the end. With baseball being an event-based sport, you want to get as much synergy as you can. That means if your guy hits a home run, wouldn't it be great if you had guys on your roster that were on base when he hit that home run? That's the stack. You get multiple players from the same team. Ideally, they're in adjacent in the batting order, but if you skip a spot here or there, it's not the end of the world. But that's more or less the strategy for baseball. We're talking a little bit more in depth on some of these because we don't have an MLB strategy show this morning, but I want to bring up some of these interesting things, and I think that the entire pitch change there for Yusei Kikuchi is an important one to remember because we had such a short season last year, and everybody remembers him giving up home runs and power to lefties, that if you're not paying attention to certain things, there's a dramatic change. Guess what? The opposing team knows this as well because they're not foolish and they have advanced scouts and they're looking at all of this. So we'll have to see how the hitters are going to adjust, knowing that they are now not going to see breaking balls, but they are going to see the cut fastball, and they may be waiting on that. Right? That's the whole guessing game that we have to do. And then how does Kikuchi adjust to those adjustments? That's the important thing when we get in here to baseball. Baseball is an incredibly variant sport. The best hitters are going to fail 70% of the time. It's kind of hard to talk about them individually because the blanket statement is just going to be, yeah, they're probably going to go 0 for 4. We don't know that, but that's happens more often than not. So just kind of a baseline setting there of expectations. But good questions. Absolutely, as we remember and shake off the dust getting into here as we complete week 1 of the major Major League Baseball season here. All right, from this one, we'll talk a little bit about the hitters here. It looks like Luis Arias did make it into the lineup. I wasn't sure if he was going to be in or not. He's batting ninth. He's very expensive on DraftKings at $5,000. He's a guy that, if he gets enough plate appearances, will be amongst the league leaders for batting average. Doesn't do much else. So fun for rotisserie leagues and not so fun for DFS leagues. But Jorge Polanco, I thought he was going to be batting cleanup. He's actually leading off. He's the lone switch hitter. And then Max Kepler batting sixth is the lone lefty. But the guys I really like are Kyle Garlick. He's the guy that is going to allow us to get in the Nelson Cruzes, the Byron Buxtons, and the Mitch Garbers, who are the amazing guys. And then you have a literal wind machine with Miguel Sano, who is just as likely to get the old golden sombrero today of 4 strikeouts or have 2 home runs. That's Miguel Sano in a nutshell. Anything else from this our third early game?
Luis Arias catapulted me the other day to a top 10 finish on a late homer, and I was just as stunned that he homered, and like I literally yelled, I didn't know he could do that, and it reminded me of Tim LaCastro's homer in the opening couple days. So that 9-hole homer bailed me out here, but I don't know if I'm going 5K or rise with regularity, but 2,900 on FanDuel for an on-base machine. Yeah, I might take some of that.
So congratulations for those watching at home. That was his 5th career home run in 459 at bats. So
it's, yeah.
Kind of a rare outcome on that one. All right, let's get into our 4th and final game here. We still don't have a lineup yet for the Cardinals, but they do have Carlos Martinez going here against the Brew Crew. Adrian Hauser coming in and making the start for Milwaukee. It looks like it's going to be a chance of light rain here, not expected to be a postponement, but we do have quite a breeze blowing out to right field. It's going to be in the 12 to 15 mile an hour range, gusts up to 20. So that is just something interesting to take note of. The guys that are really jumping out to me are going to be Travis Shaw, batting cleanup as the lefty, Omar Narvaez, who has just been on fire to start the season as a catcher. We have a lot of good catching options today. That means we're probably not going to get these tomorrow or on the late slate. We're getting them all on this 4-game slate, but you got to use what you can. But Narvaez is the kind of guy that you can actually play on FanDuel where you don't have to play a catcher. Just think of him as a DH. He's that good of a hitter for this one. What do you like or dislike from this one as we get out of our early slate?
Yeah, so the wind is going to be a factor that gets a lot of traction, I would assume. Kind of, we saw this yesterday in Cleveland, where wind models was projected right out to about center field. Kind of the same situation here. Busch Stadium usually plays a little bit more pitcher friendly, so a little extra push for some of those fly balls. Neither pitcher kind of give me the warm and fuzzies. I think Carlos Martinez is still the case. The jury's still out on him. We've watched his fastball velocity decline mightily, and now his last game he was sitting about 93 miles an hour. He's kind of abandoned the fastball, which used to be his main pitch, and now he's just kind of leaning on more secondary stuff, sliders, changeup, stuff like that. So I think he'll bleed red here if the Brewers can wake up. It has been a rough start to the Brewers season. I mean, Jackie Bradley Jr. leading off is so weird to see. You want to believe in Yelich, you want to believe in Travis Shaw, and like you said, Omar Narvaez. But man, they have been really tough out the gates. And I've got, over the course of the last 2 years, really just one guy slugging over 500 against righties. That's Yelich and Keston Hiura. So I'm gonna take advantage of maybe some of these prices on FanDuel for the Brewers and kind of sprinkle them in there. I'm curious to see where the field shakes out on this one. Hauser has some metrics where you could see him get through a righty-heavy lineup and not be the worst play. And we talked about that 6,300 SP2 price on DraftKings. If you get me to like a 10, 15 fantasy point floor ceiling, I don't want to say ceiling, but a range of outcomes where you can get me just to the double digits, the teens. Like, I don't think it's out of this world to kind of to think Hauser could get to that. But yeah, a couple fly balls might go a little further than these pitchers expect. So I'm really just playing the names that I know are talented, that have the pedigree, the Goldies, the Arenados, the Yelich's, guys like that. But I guess you could justify a stack because of the wind.
All right. that gets us out of that one. They're asking us for the stacks, which I said we would get to. Just throwing this out there, a little bonus here for the early slate. The Yankees check out as the number one overall stack, 24% chance that they are a top stack of the day. Minnesota is second at 15%. They're my personal choice. I want to go. I like Kikuchi, but I also know how bad the Seattle bullpen is. They've got a couple retread starters in there that probably shouldn't have been starters. Hell, they probably shouldn't even be in the major leagues. I think Nick Margavich just is still on their team after he failed out of San Diego. The Mariners last year were running a six-man pitching staff with 4 lefties and just getting bitch slapped, I think is the technical term. A couple of those guys are now in the bullpen form. Chris Flexen's floating around. He's a disaster that was in the we talked about him last week. He was in the KBO last year, etc. But I really like Minnesota. Your team, Tampa Bay, or your choice, I think, is going to be Tampa Bay. They're coming in third. I knew I misspoke there. You were, yeah. But you said Domingo Germán, not your guy. So
not my guy.
I'm assuming the Tampa Bay Bats are your top choice as we wrap this one up.
Yeah, Germán's curveball grades out as a good matchup for the Rays. Also, yesterday, Kluber got knocked around early and got out. Lucas Lecky, a lefty out of the bullpen, came in through 49 pitches. Likely not going to be available today, so you might see some Luis Sessa, Chad Green, Loaisiga, bunch of righties. So if you are playing these lefties against the Germán matchup, I wouldn't be too concerned about the lefty coming in. Obviously, if you get to the closer spot, Chapman might come in, but I think he'll likely be backed up by some righties here. So if you want to play some Brandon Lau or Austin Meadows and fear maybe a sharp drop off if a lefty comes in, they do have Justin Wilson, but I don't think he's made an appearance yet, and I don't think his first appearance would be too much work. So yeah, unfortunately, I think the Rays are in a decent spot here to put up some runs.
All right. And then if you guys want to see the pitching ranks, I'm going to drop this link again into the YouTube chat. Those are free today. The player rankings are, so you can kind of eyeball it there. Awesemo grades them out, points and value, 2 separate categories, A through E grades, kind of like when you're in school. So if you get somebody that's a AA, like Jacob deGrom, that would be the guy to target. If you get somebody that has a couple C's, well, perhaps that is a guy to take hitters against. So again, the crux of everything with baseball comes down to the pitching in the DFS world. All right, moving on to our night slate here, our main slate, if you will. We have and of course I changed my filters because I had too many tabs open. We've got 6 games going on. I'm just scanning here. I don't think we're really going to have weather issues in any of them. I am in the DC metro area. It's a little cloudy today. Baltimore is hosting the Red Sox tonight, but while it will be overcast and cool, there's really no expected rain. Most of the rain happened last night and this morning, so that shouldn't be an issue. We've got Padres in Texas. The roof should be open in Texas, and then the other wild card is the Arizona roof. This one's kind of interesting. They have slated for it's scheduled to be closed at the start of the game, but Arizona changes. So generally what they'll do is their day games, the roof's going to be closed because it's hot and it's not fun there. But their night games, more often than not, they'll open it as the sun goes down. And that's something that's interesting. Tonight, because at first pitch, it's just going to be in just, air quotes, in the upper 80s. I suspect they're going to just start with the roof open tonight. Their plan is likely to open it throughout the game. And that's something that we want to remember because that changes a lot in Arizona. They do have the humidor there, similar to what they have in Coors Field. And what it does is it's to suppress some of the liveliness of the baseballs. When the roof is closed and with the humidor, well, that's like a double impact. When it's open, it's not an awesome spot, but it's going to add another half run to the run total per game. So we just want to keep that one in mind. But they are one of the teams that is constantly opening and closing the roof depending on the weather because they want to enjoy it when it's not beastly hot, because there will be stretches where the roof is not open for a month at a time there. Take us through our first one here. And again, yes, I know this is not necessarily germane to all of this, but this is the important stuff that we want to remember as we dust off our skill set. You've got Chris Paddock, the recently no-hit Texas Rangers with Jordan Lyles. What do you want to do in our first one here, Gunn?
So Paddock, he's really cheap on FanDuel, 6,900. He's 92 on DK. Like all the experts, we all kind of agree Paddock's going to be good. It was a little rough out the gates at Arizona last start. Just went 4 innings. Needed 89 pitches to get through 4 innings. Because Joe Musgrove went complete game yesterday, the bullpen is rested. So if they have to quick hook Paddock, they could. I probably want to get to Paddock just because of the Rangers matchup being as soft as it is. But I could see, them being careful with Paddock here. So I will have some Paddock on FanDuel at 6,900. I do feel like he's a more talented pitcher than that price point. Last year and the year prior, his biggest problems were left-handed hitters, a 4.3 xFIP last year, a 4.4 xFIP to lefties the year prior, with a high home run per nine to not just lefties, but both sides of the plate. You talked about roofs being open and closed. This is a stadium where we have to be cognitive of that as well. Yesterday, the roof was closed, a plus for pitching due to a fear of thunderstorms in North Texas. Or right now, I think I'm showing it open. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, but similar situation. If the roof is open in Texas, you're going to get some of that Texas heat to make the environment a little bit more hitter friendly. And if that happens, I'll definitely be more receptive to targeting this game. I was on the Padres last night. I'll go back to the well tonight. And then, the Rangers, they've probably been thinking all day, how do we get some hits here? And if Paddock is going to be leaky against lefties, and if the roof is going to be open, maybe it's a perfect storm for guys like David Dahl, Nate Lowe, Joey Gallo. Ronald Guzman has a little pop too. So maybe there's some upside there. But watch the roof. I think if the roof's open, I'm definitely a little bit more inclined to believe this game has some offense. And the Rangers bullpen, from when I looked yesterday, was bottom 3 in baseball so far. So it's going to be a quality 9 innings for the Padres, as Jordan Lyles so far hasn't really put it all together coming into this season. High Sierras, high xFIPs, and the swing and strike rate last year was really bad. So I'll be on the Padres stack. I'll be on a little Paddock, and I might just have a couple Rangers lefties scattered. Joey Gallo is always a chip in a chair for a bomb, and he was the shining light of yesterday's no-hitter.
Yeah, he got on base, plunked.
Yeah.
To talk about the roof there just a second, this is one where we want to remember Arlington, the ballpark at Arlington is no more. They are now at whatever they're calling the stadium. I forget what they're calling it now. But what we saw last year was they had the roof closed almost the entire season. They opened it on 2 or 3 of their 30 games at home. The first one they did was just like, we haven't had it open yet. We're curious to see what it does for that. And there were no fans, so it was really no big deal. And they opened it a couple other times for that. It turns out that this very well could be a pitching park. We haven't seen enough games in it. And wait for it, the Rangers' bats were god-awful last year. So perhaps that contributed to the lack of offense as well. But it's something that we'll want to remember. It's not that, 110 in Texas, we're going to get some home runs here. It's going to be 110 in Texas, and they're going to be in the deliciously cool environment of their new covered stadium here. So keep that one in mind as well if you didn't keep tabs on that one from last year. So here's a question for you. I've got a little head-to-head game. I play with a few other industry luminaries here. I'm going against my friend Dean Shavelson, Dean 78904. If you want to get all technical with me, I have one pitcher I can use left. We use FanDuel scoring in this convoluted league. We have a certain number of starts. I can go with Jordan Lyles today, or I can go with in the afternoon game that we weren't talking about. We have Tariq Skubal. Who would you go amongst those two? Because Jordan had a good start in his last one. That was kind of unexpected to me. Skubal, tough matchup if you're playing that 6 o'clock slate where he's on. He's going against the Cleveland team that's pretty good against righties with all of their various switch hitters. If you were choosing between those, because I want to get a barometer here of Jordan Lyles, because the numbers look good, but I think it's fool's gold. What do you want to do with him?
Man, it is definitely – it's hard to react off a one-game sample size. I'm looking at what Lyles did bring to the plate in that first game against Kansas City. The thing that sticks out to me the most, he had almost a 29% usage on the slider. And looking at the last couple seasons, I mean, that's been almost 10% or less, 12% last year. So maybe he's decided to use the slider a little bit more. And the curveball usage dropped from normally a 30% usage over the course of the last couple seasons to just 9% that last game. So again, one game sample size, they might have just had a good report on the Royals hitters. But when you see some shakeups in pitch usage, it makes you wonder, kind of like, do we have a Kikuchi situation where he's leaning on more plus pitches? If I'm looking at my pitch report, when it comes to Jordan Lyles, he does have a plus slider. It was his only plus pitch over the course of last year. So if he's going to use his only plus pitch a lot more, then yeah, maybe there's some reason to believe in him. The Padres team, they did get 3 runs yesterday. They're going to be without Fernando Tatis. It definitely is. It's not a fun click to pitch against the Padres that we know. But they could be not great for a little while as they wait for Tatis to come back in that lineup. I don't love that they add the DH spot in this one, so you don't get like that free strikeout against the pitcher in the 9 spot. Those 2 names are so rough. Maybe I believe in Lyles, and I would be a little bit happier if the dome was closed. And looking at the Padres, only Jake Cronenworth and Caratini have great linear grades against the slider. So yeah, if we believe in that slider narrative, again, I don't want to overhype the usage off of one game. Maybe Lyles does have a chip in a chair to be a much better pitcher this year.
It's something to pay attention to, and it caught me a little off guard this morning when I started looking at it as well. So I'm glad you kind of noticed that pitch mix tweak, shall we call it, as well. So it's food for thought on this one. We're going to get into the Baltimore and Boston game. Hey, I don't really want to play either pitcher in that one. But before we get there, I do want to remind everybody that we do have all of our shows, with the exception of Live Before Locks, go out on the Awesemo podcast network. That is available on any podcast stream that you are familiar with. The other neat thing that we do there is if you leave a 5-star review on any of our podcasts on any of the platforms, you'll be put into a drawing where we are giving away 1 free week of Awesemo all access premium content to anybody that leaves a 5-star review. Just put your Awesemo username or your Twitter handle in your review, and we will reach out to you. Your reviews will be eligible for that drawing for up to a year. For those of you that are on a budget, that's an easy way to get the proverbial chip in a chair, as my friend Gunn has been saying multiple times today. All right, take it away on this one. Do you want the hitters or do you want the hitters?
Yes. Yes.
For young Cairo, we're not talking pitching in this one.
Yeah, I mean, I want to believe that someday a good pitcher comes out of Garrett Richards again, and maybe the Orioles are stagnant enough in stretches. So yeah, I still think Garrett Richards, there's hope. Zimmerman, I don't have enough sample size to believe in. And then just for Garrett Richards, I don't have a lot of hope right now. Looking at this game, we've got a 5-1 implied run total on the Red Sox, 4.5 for the Orioles, pretty high for the Orioles. Temps aren't like egregious, high humidity levels. I definitely think you can land on a lot of Red Sox bats here. I was hoping that maybe so if Kiki Hernandez leads off against a lefty, we definitely love that in our Mlb Dfs circles. JD Martinez against a lefty, we love that. Hunter Renfroe against a lefty, we love that. And then of course going into that Orioles bullpen, there's definitely very plus matchup grades all the way down the line. So yeah, I'll be right there on the Red Sox. So it's easy to say Garrett Richards is bad, but it's hard to stack Orioles with confidence, right? Like, you're not excited. So if I want to pick on Garrett Richards, I think I also want to take the platoon guys. He has allowed over a home run per 9 against lefties last year, and then going back to his 2018 campaign, that was what we saw as well. So maybe Anthony Santander gets one from that side of the plate. Cedric Mullins hit a homer in that Yankee series. So if he has that ability, and then of course Trey Mancini is probably their best actual baseball player. But yeah, like I said, it's easy to want to pick on Richards, but man, is it hard to click some Orioles names and be like, yep, this guy's gonna smash Garrett Richards. Richards 6,700 on DraftKings. Same matchup as last time. He didn't get out. He didn't get into the third inning. 7 hits allowed, a couple of walks. Didn't give up a bomb, and all of the not all, but he had a 5.3 ground ball to fly ball ratio. So he's keeping the ball on the ground a little bit more. Maybe there's some bad luck involved. The only reason I even like am discussing Richards is because pitching on the main slate or the night slate tonight, it drops off a cliff, and you might have to get a little bit weird with a name like Richards.
He's someone that he just can never stay healthy. I joked about it on the last show. I said, what's his over under for starts? Like 8.5. My counterpart Max was like, wow, you're not really being generous with that. And it's like, he was never able to stay healthy for the Angels. He'd come out, have a couple great starts, and then he'd get a nagging injury or a tired arm or whatever. He'd go on the DL, then he'd come back, and then he'd actually get an injury of some sort. He had a variety of shoulder, elbow, and I think a leg injury as well. So the poor guy is just breaking down all over the place. So that's the one unfortunate thing. Could he harness everything and have a nice 5-inning gem for us? Sure, absolutely. Do I think that's probable? No, not really. So that's where we have to take some chances here, and that's why at Awesemo we like to preach the play a lot of different lineups, creating a player portfolio, and then use stacking and leverage and all the tools that we have here at Awesemo to help you get ahead of the field. And that's something that's very, very crucial, because we'll put you in a spot where you can win. Everything still has to come together to see your name in lights at the top of these GPPs, but we'll try to keep you from having to redeposit, which is a win in and of itself at any point in time. All right, a couple more games.
If I could butt in real quick,
sure.
I do think Zimmerman might be better than we think. Again, short sample size, but like a lot of his pitches are graded really well, and a lot of the metrics that you're going to see across the industry in terms of sample size, it's going to be based off of 3 innings last year. That first game that I think it was against Boston. Yeah, it was against Boston. He did walk away with 5 strikeouts through 73 pitches, 18 fantasy points, and he had a 15% swing and strike rate. So, yeah, he might be a little bit better than we kind of give him credit for to start. And I'm just kind of discovering this now as I'm looking at his metrics.
And I brought up again and made some fun of him. He's actually I believe he grew up in Baltimore or in the area, went to high school there. Doesn't he? I think it's his fastball that is not fast. I want to say it's like 90, 91. Do you have that?
Yeah, I got 91 on the fastball. The pitch that it looks like he's done the best with is that changeup. It grades the best, and he's been leaning on that almost over 22% of the time. There are some the JD Martinez and like there's hitters in this lineup that grade well against the changeup. So again, I don't want to overreact to good sample or good performances in a short sample size, but I also don't want to overreact to bad metrics in a short sample size. And it looks like after looking at that first game, there's a decent pitcher in there if he's on, considering that swing and strike rate. So it's probably that head spot you were talking about, having multiple lineups. So I could see some Zimmerman as a SP2. But yeah, I just think like the initial chart that I had him at a 4% swing and strike rate, and I was like, Then I clicked on, I saw the strikeouts. So I looked at the last game. He was at a 15% swing and strike rate. So it's not like we can give him a bunch of bad calls and backwards Ks. It looked like he got some of those. With that said, going against the same team twice in a week, a lot of these batters are familiar with how you approach them, and they have those iPads ready to go. So I'm going to be more interested in the offense in this game, but I just wanted to at least put a disclaimer that maybe Zimmerman isn't that bad.
All right, 4 more games to go. We are going to get out of here promptly at 1 because we have another show coming after us. It is the NASCAR preview show. That race is tonight, so you'll want to check that out. Quick thoughts here on Toronto. Yes, they disappointed me yesterday. Yes, I'm going right back to them against a lefty. Why is it? Well, Andrew Heaney has great strikeout stuff. He also allows a lot of home runs and hard contact. Worked out for him last night, no problem. Now we've got Jose Quintana, who is coming in here. This is year 11 for him in his career. His fastball, 90, 91, 92, maybe. That's all it's been throughout his career. He's relying a lot on breaking balls and a little bit with his changeup. The difference, or the issue with this changeup, it's only like 5 miles an hour less than his fastball. Usually you like to see that differential in the 8, 9, 10 mile per hour range. I'm just going off memory here. So if I'm off on that, Gun, you correct me. Be sure to do that. Last night, Lourdes Gurriel got dinged up when he was on the base pass. He went out. Not sure if he's going to be in the game tonight or not. He is okay, but that could shake things up a little bit. Our one catcher we have on the night slate, I don't believe he was in the lineup last night, but Danny Jansen is going to be there tonight. He will be batting probably ninth. He's a phenomenal option. He's got nice power against lefties. And for those pesky sites like DraftKings and Yahoo, he's near the minimum price. So we're going to want to have him in our plans tonight if he's there. If Gurriel is out, that's probably going to open the door for both Jonathan Davis and Alejandro Kirk to be in the lineup. Otherwise, just one of them will be in there. Those guys are some cheapies that can help us out as well. But then the names that you guys don't need to analysis on: Marcus Semien, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero, Randall Grichuk, who DFS gamers hate him for whatever reason, but all he does is hit with power when he connects. And then, of course, the lone lefty in the lineup will be Kevon Biggio. This is my stack of the night. What do you like from this game?
Yeah, I'm on the Angels side. I honestly, I don't think the Blue Jays are bad. I think Quintana being a contact pitcher with an average bullpen behind him, yeah, Blue Jays are right there in the thick of things. But the Angels are looking really good. I've watched a lot of Angels baseball thus far. Yesterday, they were my highest owned in the field's highest owned stack. Ohtani, Trout, Rendon, Upton, definitely going to be the heart of what I'm attacking there. And then David Fletcher's probably right there as well. Steven Matz is, one of those pitchers that it's kind of the reverse of yesterday, right? Andrew Heaney had strikeout stuff, but you could see the weaknesses. Steven Matz is kind of the same scenario. Like, you could see that he has lived over a 20% K rate the last couple of years to righties, but he does give up bombs. And this is a very, very powerful Angels team thus far. And as if they needed any boost, the park plays pretty hitter friendly with the dimensions being what they are and with the Florida temperatures being what they are. So I'm on the game stack just in general, but I'm definitely going right back to the Angels, although the Blue Jays do win the implied run total battle here. But Ohtani looked really good yesterday. Ohtani at 3,200 on FanDuel, that seems disrespectful. Like that, he's way better. He's been way better than that, especially if he's going to be a two-hole guy in this park.
All right. Thank you, chat. The Bird Nerd, my favorite ornithologist, points out that it was actually an adverse reaction to a COVID shot that was Lourdes Gurriel. And I was sitting there, I was like, I watched the game. I saw Blue Jay get hurt. I had basketball on one screen. I had multiple baseball games on the other. That was Teoscar Hernandez, I believe, that went out for a base running injury. Mea culpa. I apologize for that one. But that should open up our outfield spot for our cheapies. I just saw that red cue for a Toronto outfielder and went running with it. But thank you for pointing that out. I do not want to give erroneous information there especially to the Bird Nerd on that one. So are you going to play Trout?
Yeah, I'll definitely be on Trout. Trout was 45% owned last night on FanDuel. Alex talked about it yesterday. If a player gets to 50, a hitter gets to 50% or better, the right move is probably to fade him because that's just incredible leverage. And more often than not, the player is going to fail at that area. But on a short slate, if you can get the Trout and it's easy to do, it's very hard to make the human decision to fade him. But the math decision is probably if Trout's a 60% owned bet. If you want to go after number one spot in a tournament, maybe you go the other way.
Would you consider Upton?
Yeah. Upton more than Lagares.
So
yes.
So you're saying there's going to be Angels in your outfield?
There are going to be.
Boom! Had to get the dad joke in when you least expected it. Oh, one for EMac.
Oh man, I didn't know the gloves are off. But now I know.
Yes. You gotta be careful here. Be at the ready always. Okay, three. Well, this I think we've covered this one well enough. The next one, I kind of like the pitching on both sides. This is the Philadelphia Phillies at Atlanta. It's going to be in the mid 60s at first pitch, a little bit of a cross breeze from first base to third base. So nothing really to worry about there. Both offenses are solid, but we have a 3.7 implied run total for the Phillies, who just are not hitting at this point in the season. And then granted, we're 6 or 7 games in, and you've got Atlanta, who also has a pretty good offense, but Zach Eflin is sort of coming into his own. So Ian Anderson on the other side, probably one of, if not the most talented potential amongst any of the Bravos hurlers here. So I like the pitching on both these. Selectively, I'll have some one-offs or maybe a mini stack here or there just because we only have 12 teams in our player pool. But do you like the pitching more in this one? And do you prefer one or the other, or can we play both these guys?
I think I'd have some scatter shares of both. Ian Anderson probably a little bit more. Yesterday the Braves are kind of that lineup you look at. You're just like, man, this is a talented Acuna, Albies, Freeman, Ozuna. You're like, this is a talented lineup. I don't necessarily want to pitch against this. So yesterday the approach I took was I was just going to activate Acuna and Freeman in my other stacks, and it actually worked out. Acuna was on fire. Went Yabo, and late Freddie Freeman did as well. So I might run back that approach here and just allow the talent to make the player pool. Acuna getting to that $5,800 price point. You comp that to Mike Trout, who's 59 on DK. Obviously, I think most people that get put in a corner with $5,900, they're probably going to go Trout over Acuna here, and maybe that's how you get a little bit different if we do get a Trout ownership at the 50+% projection. So yeah, I definitely am more interested in the pitchers being a better play than the stacks are at the end of the night, but I'm definitely going to have some one-off Acuna's exposure, some Freeman exposure, stuff like that. Eflin strikeout stuff last year to right-handed hitters was pretty doggone good, 29.6% K rate and a 2.52 xFIP to righties. And right now I just see two lefties in the projected lineup of Switchy and Albies and Freddie Freeman. So he should have the benefit of the split there. And then Ian Anderson in the sample size so far has been pretty solid. Maybe the Sierra is a little bit more than the ERA, leaving some room for regression for him to get hit a little bit more. But it's not like it's an incredibly bad Sierra. So it's 3.93 Sierra last year, and then that first game looked solid. So more pitching than the stacking, but definitely going to have some Acuna and Freeman. And I guess you could say the same on the pedigree levels on like a Harper, and Real Muto is a $3,200 play on FanDuel. If he's batting cleanup, a lot of people just dismiss catchers. Real Muto, right there in the thick of things, could drive into RBI or two and just be a fine play.
All right, two more to go. We got about 8 minutes, so we're going to go quick on these. I did want to point out that Jeff Hoffman is, we talked about the roof likely being open at some point here for Arizona. Jeff Hoffman, former Colorado Rockies. He is not pitching in Coors Field, but he's bringing Coors Field with him, Gun. Did you know over his last 37 road innings, he has allowed a 2.4 home run per nine, a 6.21 ERA, and a 12% walk rate. Yikes. Not many household names here for Arizona, but Cole Calhoun, 250 plus ISO and lefty righty matchups. You see he's going to strike out 1 in 4, 1 in 3 times, but he's going to connect. And when he does, the ball's going to go far. We can say the same thing about Christian Walker from the other side of the plate. I like David Peralta tonight. And then you've got Asdrubal Cabrera, Eddie Escobar. We got a bunch of options here that are not going to be popular because nobody knows who they are. What do you want to do in our second to last game?
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Hoffman looking like a bad pitcher. Real quick, years back, Jeff Hoffman was pitching for the Rockies in Wrigley, and it was one of those games where winds were blowing out at Wrigley at like 20 miles an hour, and I had posted on Twitter Jeff Hoffman's fly ball rate, how bad he is, the wind's blowing out. I was like, the Cubs are going to drop a 20 spot. Hoffman went out there and shut them down, and after the game, Jeff Hoffman's father came to my Twitter and liked the tweet. He didn't tweet at me, just liked it. And then I was just like, oh my God, I just got destroyed. So I added his dad, and his dad was like, it's okay. You doubted him. He's been doubted his whole life. So I've been waiting for vengeance, and maybe I'll get it in the D-back stack tonight. Cole Calhoun came in last night, hit a rocket off of Sean Doolittle, lefty on lefty. You kind of didn't expect that to go off a lefty, but he did. Also, Jesse Winker left that game injured. He was coming from third base home, started hobbling. He's one of my favorite plays if he does play. He's been one of the better barrel hard hit guys, and he just missed a homer, which was a questionable call. It hit the top of the fence yellow, but there's some angles that make it look like it hit a chair on the other side. So the game, I think, will have some offense. But if Winker's out of that lineup, we do have some question marks. And the D-backs are just not, without Ketel Marte, they're not a fun stack. But that game went to extras yesterday, and both bullpens give you plenty of opportunities past these average at best starters.
All right, one more game to go. Reminder, we have all sorts of shows coming on right after this is the NASCAR Strategy Show with Jason and Phil. That's brought to you by Monkey Knife Fight. 2 o'clock, we have the NHL Strategy Show brought to you by Jock Market. That will be Cliffy and Josh. And then we get the premium stream behind the paywall. That is going to be Terry McBride doing a little game plan. He's going to go walk everybody through how to use the appropriate settings for Fantasy Cruncher, and you can ask him baseball or basketball questions. And then let's see, back in front of the free wall at 5:30, and in front of the paywall, it is the free wall. We have Spags and Rinpack breaking down the NBA, and then you get Greg and Terry. That's a nerd ass Greg taking you up to lock 6:30 to 7:30. It's a later lock tonight for the NBA. And then tomorrow we're running it all back. 10 a.m. we got the NBA Strategy Show with Josh and Rinpack. At noon, you're going to get me and Max talking a little MLB. At 5, you're going to get me and Terry breaking down the NBA slate, which is actually a big one tomorrow. And then we also have Live Before Lock with looks like a bonus half hour there for No House Advantage. So we got you covered. Final game here. I don't really know what to do with this one. I hate to just throw my hands up, but as a Nationals fan, I like Soto. I think it's great that Zimmerman's hitting home runs after opting out last season. His wife has, I believe she has MS, so he didn't want to have any risk of health, COVID issues or whatever, so he didn't play last season. This probably is his swan song, but they're going against Julio Urias, who's an amazing pitcher once they let him go past his pitch count, but he's $10,000 on DraftKings. Gun, what do I do?
Yeah, no, this is probably the toughest game on the slate to decipher what could happen or what will happen. I think I'll just bet on some of the Dodgers' talent, not necessarily betting against Corbin, just betting that Betts, Turner, Seager, Muncy, that they're good. They do have some. Patrick Corbin used to be in their division, so a little familiarity there historically. And then, like I said, Urias projects pretty well. Maybe last year, xFIP was better than his performance against righties. But if I'm touching this game, I'm probably just going for the talent guy, the Trey Turners, the Sotos, and the Ryan Zimmermans against some of the aforementioned Dodgers. But it's hard to love a stack pre-flop.
Yeah, and this is one. Let's kind of see who's coming in the lineup. Bellinger probably still out for a bit with his injury. Mookie Betts is general soreness, I think, is what his thing is. I fully expect to see him leading off against a lefty, but of course that'll be the last game of the night. Well, we should know the lineups right around lock of our main slate, but that should be a fun one to watch as well. And we got 3 10 o'clock NBA games. It's going to be another exciting night if you are in the DFS world. You want to get in behind the Awesemo paywall, you can be in our premium Slack channel. Very, very helpful. I was breaking down how to use Fantasy Cruncher for some of our users last night that were having some issues with their settings. They were telling me some of their tips and tricks that they used, a nice little kibitzing back and forth. So definitely check that out. It's one of the benefits that you get with any of our premium packages. You get access to all of the premium Slack. With that, we better do top stacks real quick. Your night slate stacks. I want to go with Toronto. My second one is probably going to be Arizona. What do you like?
Probably going to be Angels 1.
In the outfield, once again.
Angels. If Winker plays, I like the Reds.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, gamers, stay tuned, and you can watch the NASCAR Strategy Show. Good luck.